For the part 5 of our topic, let's discuss the medieval arts. Medieval era divided into three: the Byzantine, the Romanesque, and the Gothic era. Byzantine paintings is the art of the Byzantine Empire, almost entirely concerned with religious expression, specifically with the translation of church theology into artistic terms. Icons is the representations of holy figures were created for the veneration by Byzantine Christians from the 3rd century CE. They are most often seen in mosaics, wall paintings, and small artworks made from wood, metal, gemstones, enamel, or ivory. The subject in icons is typically portrayed full frontal, with either the full figure shown or the head and the shoulders only. They stare directly at the viewer as they are designed to facilitate communication with the divine. Figures often have a nimbus or halo around them to emphasize their holiness. The majority of surviving wall and ceiling mosaics depict religious subjects and are to be found in many Byzantine churches. One of their characteristics is the use of gold tiles to create a shimmering background to the figures of Christ, the Virgin Mary, and saints. As with icons and paintings, the portraiture follows certain conventions such as full frontal view, halo, and general lack of suggestive movement. Byzantine sculptures. Ivory carving is the manual or mechanical carving of either animal tooth or tusk, wherein very fine detail can be achieved, and the surviving works often demonstrate intricate and complicated designs. This art form has a special importance to the history of Byzantine art because it has no bullion value and it's not easily recycled like precious metals or jewels. Because of this, many ivory carvings from the early Byzantine period still survive. Ivory diptych, often elaborately decorated, were issued as gifts by newly appointed consuls. The Barberini diptych is a Byzantine ivory leaf from an imperial diptych dating from late antiquity. It is carved in the style known as Laetudicians, representing the emperor as triumphant victor. Diptych, a picture or series of pictures painted in two tablets usually connected by hinges. Iconoclasm. Broadly defined, iconoclasm is defined as the destruction of images. In Christianity, iconoclasm has generally been motivated by people who adopt a literal interpretation of the Ten Commandments, which forbid the making and worshipping of graven images. Byzantine iconoclasm constituted a ban on religious images by Emperor Leo III and continued under his successors. It was accompanied by the widespread destruction of images and persecution of supporters of the veneration of images. The goal of iconoclasts was to restore the church to a strict opposition to images and worship that they believed characterized at the least some parts of the early church. Christianity influenced developments such as the conversion of the secular basilica into a magnificent church with an impressive dome ceiling. There was as well as much greater concern for the interiors of buildings rather than their exteriors. The extensive use of interior mosaic and heightened dome. How do you put a huge round dome onto a square-shaped room? Byzantine engineers turned the structural use of pendentives to elevate domes to new heights. With this technique, a dome can rise from the top of a vertical cylinder like a silo, giving height to the dome. A good example of pendentives can be seen from the inside is the interior of the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, one of the most famous Byzantine structures in the world. Churches were built everywhere to promote the new Christian religion and impose imperial authority on places far and wide, from the capital to Jerusalem. The following are examples of Byzantine architecture. Hagia Irene, or also known as Hagia Irene or Hagia Irene Kilisesi in Istanbul, is the site of the first Christian church ordered built by Constantine in the 4th century. Hagia Sophia means Holy Wisdom, built in 537 as the patriarchal cathedral of the imperial capital of Constantinople. It was the largest Christian church of the Eastern Roman Empire. From 1204 to 1261, it became the city's Latin Catholic cathedral. In 1453, after the fall of the Constantinople to the Ottoman Empire, it was converted into a mosque. In 1935, the secular Turkish Republic established it as a museum. In general, Romanesque art reflected the rise in political and economic stability across Europe. With stability came higher tax and tight revenues for the church, which therefore had more money to spend on new churches. In churches, painting continued to follow Byzantine iconographic models. Christ in Majesty, the Last Judgment, and scenes from the life of Christ remain among the most common depictions. Christ in Majesty. This painting is dominated by the giant figure of Christ in a mandorla. The distinct characteristic of Romanesque art is the use of mandorla. A mandorla is an almond shape or a halo around the body of a sacred person, or frame that surrounds the totality of an iconographic figure and body of a sacred. Romanesque sculptures. Sculpture also exhibited a vigorous style, evident in the carved capitals of columns, which often depicted complete scenes consisting of several figures. Precious objects sculpted in metal, enamel, and ivory, such as reliquaries. In a significant innovation, the tympanums of important church portals were carved with monumental schemes, again depicting Christ in Majesty or the Last Judgment, but treated with more freedom than in painted versions. Romanesque architectures, combining features of Roman and Byzantine buildings along with other local traditions, Romanesque architecture is distinguished by massive quality, thick walls, round arches, sturdy piers, groin vaults, large towers, and decorative arcades. Let's know the following key terms. One is the groin vault. Groin vault is the intersection of right angles of the two varials, while the tympanum is triangular space between the sides of a pediment, the space within an arc and above a lintel or a subordinate arc, spanning the opening below the arc. Pier, in architecture, is an upright support for structure or superstructure such as an arc or bridge. Each building has clearly defined forms and symmetrical plan, resulting in a much simpler appearance than the Gothic buildings that would follow. The style can be identified across Europe despite regional characteristics and materials. Romanesque churches characteristically incorporated semicircular arches for windows, doors, and arcades, barrel or groin vaults to support the roof of the nave. Gothic paintings. Gothic painting followed the same stylistic evolution as did sculpture, from stiff, simple, hieratic form toward more relaxed and natural ones. Paintings usually featured scenes and figures from the New Testament, particularly of the Passion of Christ and the Virgin Mary. The illuminated manuscripts continue the custom to combine the colorful paintings with text to contribute to its understanding and better illustrate the story narrated. In 14th to 15th centuries, secular subjects such as hunting scenes, chivalry themes, and depictions of historical events also appeared. Both were religious and secular subjects. Gothic sculpture was closely tied to architecture, since it was used primarily to decorate the exteriors of cathedrals and other religious buildings. The earliest Gothic sculptures were stone figures of saints and the Holy Family used to decorate the doorways or portals. Architecture was the most important and original art form during the Gothic period. The principal structural characteristics of Gothic architecture arose out of medieval masons' efforts to solve the problems associated with supporting heavy masonry ceiling vaults over wide spans. The defining design element of Gothic architecture is the pointed or ogival arch. The use of the pointed arch led to the development of the pointed rib vault and flying buttresses, combined with elaborate tracery and stained glass windows. A pointed arch or Gothic arch is an arch with a pointed crown whose two curving sides meet at a relatively sharp angle at the top of the arch. Stained glass refers to colored glass as a material and to works created from it. Throughout its thousand-year history, the term has been applied almost exclusively to the windows of churches and other significant religious buildings. In Western Europe, together with illuminated manuscripts, they constitute the major form of medieval pictorial art to have survived. The purpose of a stained glass window is not to allow those within a building to see the world outside or even primarily to admit light but rather to control it. For this reason, stained glass windows have been described as illuminated wall decorations. The design of a window may be abstract or figurative, may incorporate narratives drawn from the Bible, history, or literature, may represent saints or patrons or use of symbolic motifs. And that's it for medieval arts. Different eras, different styles, characteristics, and functions of the arts occurred, but all of this contributes in the development and establishing the importance of arts in our lives today. Until then, see you again on my next video. God bless.